So, lads, today we're going to be talking a little bit about the WNBA CBA, and it's looking more and more likely that there's going to be a lockout, strike, work stoppage, whatever word you want to use to describe the situation. It's probably going to happen. It is probably going to happen, and for the players in the WNBA, I mean, is it the biggest deal in the world? I'm not sure. I think the ones that are already millionaires, they're going to be millionaires anyway. And I don't think people realize that this could be the end of it. This could be the end of it. And the fact that they're trying to use Unrivaled as a bargaining chip, being like, we can just go and play in Unrivaled, when Unrivaled is literally running on investors' money. Like, Unrivaled is running on investors' money and TNT taking a huge risk because they're about to lose the NBA. Like, they're literally about to lose the NBA, so they took a risk in Unrivaled because they're not going to get it in the WNBA deal, and they thought Unrivaled might work, so that's why Unrivaled had money for 3 years. Unrivaled are now announcing that Steph Curry's an owner when Steph Curry invested his money 4 months ago. 4 months ago, Steph Curry invested his money in Unrivaled, and now they're announcing it as like, oh, Steph is Unrivaled, and it's like, that was 4 months ago. He was in the same, the same group of like ownerships as like Juju Watkins, group of like investors. Sorry, is Juju Watkins. But anyway, let's take a look at what has been said. So first of all, let's look at Nafisa Collier. Minnesota Lynx star Nafisa Collier said during an upcoming appearance on CBS Sports, "We need to talk now that WNBA players are internally discussing the possibility of a work stoppage as they continue their negotiations with the league and the new CBA." And I think it's very there's very much a difference between going out there and by the way, I don't actually think there's any issue with the players talking about it. I do think with the Angel Reese, the quote of "give us what we want or we sitting out," like that was not great from someone who's not on the WNBPA. But if Nafisa Collier, who's a vice president, if Dejanay, who's even involved in it, if trying who are involved, like I'm pretty sure from the Aces, Chelsea Gray and Kelsey Plummer involved. Well, Kelsey Plummer used to be on the Aces. Like all these players that are involved. So you've got that now, and I don't think if the players that are like in the meetings want to talk on it, they can do so at their own risk. And Nneka Nwumeke spoke on it. So Nneka Nwumeke says opting out. This is probably from back in the day. Opting out isn't about bigger paychecks. It's about claiming our rightful share of the business we've built. It sounds like they want equity. It sounds like they want equity in these teams, and that will never happen. That will never happen. Equity is now the buzzword because of Unrivaled. That will never happen. And it's one of the things with Unrivaled that's really weird is that if Unrivaled is to last 20 years, as the years go on, there's only a finite amount of equity. So you're either creating so many more shares of Unrivaled that it dilutes every single person's share and it screws over literally every investor. It screws over all the original players. Or the original 30 are just going to be making millions, whereas the new players are going to be making just a little bit of salary. So that's one of the things when it comes to equities. There's a finite amount of equity. And when it comes to the WNBA already only owns 42% of its league. And it says here, we built improving work conditions and securing a future where success will create benefits to today's players and generations to come. We're not just asking for CBA to reflect our value, we're demanding it because we've earned it. The WNBA players have earned extra salary. Do you want to know why they've earned extra salary? Because of the new TV deal. A lot of it due to Caitlin Clark. That is the only reason the WNBA players have earned extra money. Because you might be saying, oh, but like they're the best in the world at their sport. But it's like, yeah. Like, there are a lot of sports where you can be the best in the world at it and you're not earning that much money. Like, that's just the thing. Like, it's all sport dependent. Like, you can be the 100th best NBA player and make 30 million a year. But if you're the 100th best tennis player, you might be struggling to make a living. If you're the 200th best tennis player in the world, you're probably living out of your car. Like, I don't think people realize that in sports, a lot of the time, some of the best players in the world, whether it be men's sports, women's sports, just don't make that much of a living. Like, it's not a foregone conclusion that if you are an athlete, you're going to be living in luxury, especially from a playing salary. But in fairness, the new TV deal is there. So because of the new TV deal, the money has to go somewhere, and I'd rather money go to the players and the owners. Let's be real. You'd rather the money go to the players and the owners. But the problem is let's just say the new TV deal, as far as I'm aware, it's gone from 60 to 200 million a year. So it's 200 million a year, but 100, they only get 42% of that. So the league only gets the 42% of that money. So unlike other leagues where the WNBA players want a revenue split the same as the NBA's revenue split. And people are like, oh, but like if the NBA, like whatever about the profits of the NBA and the profit split, they should be owing money, but they should be paying to play. That's not the case. The NBA players don't get paid a split based on the profits. They get paid a split based on the revenue it brings. And the problem is that the NBA, whether it be the MLS, I don't think the MLS own 100%, but like almost all sports leagues, with their revenue splits, they own 100%. So the WNBA currently gets 10% of the revenue. I think the most that they could possibly negotiate is 21%. If the WNBA players get 21% of the revenue, which is, I think, probably the most that they possibly could, get, and that is 50% of the revenue that goes to the WNBA. Like, the WNBA cannot pay the players based on the revenue that is given to the NBA. They cannot do that, nor can they do it to the revenue based on the investors from 2022. The 18% for the investors that raised 75 million, just because that's 18% is worth nothing, or is worth way more than 75 million right now. They need it at the time, and they made a terrible business deal. And the NBA, in fairness, the league doesn't exist without the NBA's backing up to this point, so they got their 42%. Eventually, the NBA teams are going to profit so much off the WNBA. They made bad deals to stay afloat, and now, unfortunately, they have to pay the consequences. And because of that, it's almost certainly going to be a lockout. And again, I understand from the players' perspectives, like, there should be more money. But again, there's CBA deals. If they manage to, the only way that these players can get paid what they feel they deserve, and one of the scariest things is that they'll realize is that it's only very few players that teams are going to be willing to pay big money, is by removing the salary cap. Like, that is actually the best thing that they can negotiate, is removing the salary cap and allowing teams pay what they want. And if you remove the salary cap, you have to get rid of the draft. And that is for players. Like, I don't know if that's a good thing for the league, but for the players to make the money they want. Because Matt Ishbia would pay Caitlin Clark $10 million a year tomorrow. Like, Matt Ishbia would literally form a super team. The size would form a super team. Like, there would be about 7 WNBA teams that would form super teams because their owners are multi-billionaires and their owners are cool with losing $10 million a year. Like, losing $10 million a year is nothing for these owners, so they're willing to risk that. Like, NBA owners cut players for $40 million. They write off more money than that. Like, they'll use it as a tax write-off and they can celebrate when the team wins. But then there's the 5 or 6 bad owners in the WNBA that'll never let that happen. But I think I would say there's a near certainty that there's going to be some sort of lockout. And I don't know if the WNBA ever recovers. I really don't. I really, really don't. But anyway, yeah, that is pretty much it. It's a really weird situation because obviously there are new teams. There are new expansion teams coming in for the years. The problem is that the players are going to probably ask for equity. And let's just say if they ask for equity, and what they would probably want between all the current players in the WNBA, some like 10% of the WNBA to go to them for equity. And then what happens then? The WNBA then suddenly suddenly get 32%. And then they can't pay the players in the future. Like, an equity deal, nothing would screw over the league more than an equity deal because it will help the players currently playing. But there's, again, a finite amount of equity. There's a finite amount of equity and it's not going to help anything. But that's one of the problems is that they're asking for something that they don't realize is nearly impossible. Like, charter flights is more than the player's salary. Like, let's just say the player gets 100. Let's just say the salary's double. Their charter flights would still be more than their salary per player. And that's one of the issues is the charter flights, the retirement money, the everything that they're looking to bring in the new CBA, the guarantees of facilities, all of that is going to cost more than all of their salaries. And then they want that plus the salary bump, and it's really hard with the lack of percentage of revenue they bring in to do that. Because again, the WNBA owns 42%, only owns 42%. If the WNBA starts struggling financially again, the only way that they're going to be able to make that money back is by selling off more of the 42%. So the worst thing that can possibly happen is, whether it be from the owners, whether it be from the players' long-term perspectives, is you want to make this deal. You want to make this deal so that you don't get screwed, but also so that the league exists. And I have a really bad feeling the WNBA players are making decisions based on them and the next 10 years. And they might make a decision that might actually stop this league from existing. I think there's a legitimate chance that the way these CBA negotiations go, the league may not exist. But anyway, I'll see you guys.